Hi there, my name's Dan.
And my name is Suzie, and together we're Duzie.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening,
and
wherever you are.
welcome to Duzie Live.
The theme is courage. Courageous.
We really want to walk in courage today.
This is going to be great.
Thank you so much for joining us live. Those of you who are live, those of you who are joining us on the replay, we are so excited for you to join us with our special guest, Mark Earle, and hopefully Melissa, his wife, as well. So everyone who's here, if you're here in the chat, if you wouldn't mind, go down on the chat, put your name and where you're coming from, and then we can just address you personally.
Let me define courage for you. I've been so much soaking in this idea of courage over the last couple weeks. It is the ability to do something that frightens you. It takes risk. It takes vulnerability. Courage is not an attitude. Courage it's like something you hold on to, something you possess.
It's an action
that moves you forward. It is an action.
Yeah, that's right.
And today we want to really look at what are those things that frighten us, that we actually need to move through rather than being held back. We need to move our life into that place of flow. To do that, we have to move into some of those scary areas or the areas that maybe are a little bit uncomfortable. We're looking at that today.
Yes, thank you for joining us. Walk in courage. Where have we been so far? Let us just give you a short synopsis. You know, if you've been watching us or a part of our life in the last long time, we have been talking all about living fully alive. And we've got the Fully Alive revolution going on. And in that, we are talking about fully alive individuals living uncompromisingly, relentlessly pursuing who they were called to be, who God made them to be, finding it and living fully alive. And as we live our fully alive beings, then we'll have a ripple effect on other people around us. We will help them become fully alive. And that was the whole basis for our course. And we were trying to help identify some rhythms or habits, values, and putting the values and the habits together, living what you believe, having your net community around you to support you living fully alive, and identifying your passion, how you live fully alive, and the impact that it makes on others.
So I've seen a little symbol here on our side. Hopefully, if you're in, you're just saying hello, where you're from. We got a little hand up. I'm hoping that's Mark. Coming in from Canada. But who do we have in the room right now? We're going to get to you in a few minutes. Mark.
Okay, so it looks like we've got Nikki coming from Oxford, Michigan. Woo!
Yeah.
We've got Benjamin from Poland, Warszawa, Poland. Thanks for joining. Hannah Johnson from Alberta, Canada.
Nice.
Cheryl from Michigan. Tammy's coming in from West Africa. So when you come in, if you wouldn't mind, you just go right ahead and sign in. I see that it is Melissa. And Melissa, I'm going to accept you. And just a little note here, it's going to take you into some other screens. So we might not hear from you for a while. So keep pursuing. Hopefully you're on Chrome. You've got your headphones in, and it's going to ask you to check your audio and your video. And we'll be able to see when you've gone through all those steps. Can't wait.
I got to tell you what's been going on in the last 15 minutes. We have been having a light lunch, getting ready for this. Hardly able to eat because we're so excited. It's like, let's get this thing going. So we're really hoping this goes well because we have some great questions for you, and hopefully you who have joined us, some questions to add into this look at courage.
Yeah. So just a little shout out of what's going on. As we're thinking about courage, we were going to have in this section, we were going to do courageous imagination because that's our theme, our current theme for 2020, having courage and living in imagination. And we thought those were way too big of concepts. So we broke it down into courage. And following this Duzie Live webinar in the next couple of days, we're going to have module number 3 of Flow up. And Flow is the second course. And it's basically about living your fully alive life, staying focused on the Father, having time, And now we're into the courage and into the imagination.
Oh, you
part.
forgot observe your fear.
Oh, observe your fear. Can't forget that.
The courage and imagination is module 4.
Okay. Oh, that's right.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you
moving
for
on.
correcting that. Yeah. So, those of you who are in the chat, please make notes anytime. Ask questions, comments, emotional outbursts. Put that in there. And we just want to get started here by just rolling some pictures of what we've seen John, Mark, and Melissa and the gang up there in Peace River, what they've been going through.
So you may have seen this on our YouTube, or you may have seen this on one of our socials, but we are wanting you to see this. I think, let's see if Melissa and John Mark are on.
Oh, they were a second ago.
Let's see. We're going to show the video. You just stay there in that room to get an idea of where they've come from. And then we are going to have them join us. And we're going to interview them and ask them questions. Oh, there you are. Hey. How are you? Get the headphones on here.
All right. John Mark, can you hear me? I cannot hear you.
How about now?
Yeah. Woo! You look different when you're not in the ice.
You look in a warm environment.
I've got a sweater on even.
So, you have Melissa there with you as well.
Yeah, she's here. I couldn't get the audio to work through the laptop, so I just have these single set of headphones. So
well, it's looking good. If she can pop her beautiful face in anytime, we want to see her and also chat with her too. Hey! So this is Melissa, my niece, daughter of my oldest brother. We're just going to look at you because you look good. And then John Mark is here, our nephew, and he's been going through some amazing things.
John Mark, what I want to do first, I want to roll some of the video that I just took of yours.
Put together from your socials that you guys have been documenting. What's going on?
Wait a second. Bethany, but
is she here too?
She's not here with me, but she's been one of the ones who has been helping with the photos.
It's amazing. I'm inspired every day by you guys.
Oh, yeah. So if you don't mind, just stay right there. We're going to roll some of the clips so we can experientially see what's going on. Then we want to come back and chat with you about that.
We're going to go for about 4 minutes of watching this, and then we'll be back.
All right.
It was a daunting and teeth-chattering experience for those who took part in Edmonton's annual polar plunge on Sunday in support of the Special Olympics.
Shock of hitting the water never changes. It's that instantaneous, it's cold, and you almost takes your breath away.
Now this one-day challenge inspired an Alberta man to go one step further. John Mark Earle has decided to plunge every day of winter. He started on December 16th and will go until March 19th in his hometown of Peace River, which is 5 hours north of Edmonton.
Minus 47, that was the coldest day where I went in, and psychologically, that's pretty tough to face.
His reason for doing the daily dip is to create awareness about mental health.
I think all of us face lots of stressors, and sometimes it feels like that I'm feeling alone.
Even though it's always a shock to his system when he jumps in, John Mark says he appreciates how this pushes his comfort zone.
It has more to do with a tendency to hide from the things that are uncomfortable, the things that might be scary, and I realize that when I am living my life from a position of fear, it's not my best life.
So far, John Mark has plunged for 42 days, so he still has a ways to go, but he's more than up for the challenge. From Edmonton, Saskew, City News.
Too shallow, crazy.
Pardon?
I think I'm good with that.
bad.
222. Woo! When I went in yesterday, this is where I cut my notch and went straight out from. So it's frozen another 40 feet. So this stuff here isn't thick enough for me to actually walk on.
This is something else. Day 22. Woo!
It is freezing cold. You can tell by the sound of the snow. So this is just a light dusting of snow on the ground. But you can hear the squish it makes.
Oh yeah. It's kind of weird.
She's running.
Yeah, I grabbed some milk and all the water. Oh yeah, that's awesome. How far do you have to go to get that?
Your socks are
Just
smoking.
past Roma Drive. Oh yeah. Next turn right. Oh
Woo!
Second row. It's like a layer of ice on it. It's hard to use. There we go.
I can't hear that.
I'll stop it there, but I love seeing those videos every time.
So for those who don't quite know where it is, so here's the United States and Canada, and we're way down here. Beep. And he's way up there. So this is where we're both coming from. John Mark, tell us a little bit. Every time I watch that, I'm so emotional. I'm over here wiping tears because I am so moved by this experience. And last night I watched everything. I looked at everything on your Facebook. I watched everything on Instagram. And I'm just moved every time I see it. And I'm just so excited to have you because to me, you represent a picture of courage right now. And we want to hear from you what's going on.
Awesome. I surprisingly also felt a little weepy while I was watching that. I haven't really gone back through and just watched all of the different dips that I did and kind of to see the process from the beginning. And it honestly, it's unbelievable to me. Just that one, I've been able to do it, but also I couldn't have imagined at the beginning how many other people would find inspiration in this and come and join me and also use that inspiration to do things unrelated to ice baths. But last night we finally hit 60 new people who have joined me in a dip since I started. So
60 new people.
Yeah, I couldn't even believe it. Last night, I had one of the guys who goes with me all the time was at the river ahead of me, and he had 5 people show up who had seen us do it and just wanted to try it before I even got there. So when I got there, he was like, yeah, we got some new people today. And one couple, they had just been watching us from the window of their house and were curious about what was going on. They came down and tried it themselves. So it's really amazing.
Mark, I have to tell you,
this is a movement.
The first thing I said to Suzie when I woke up this morning is, do you think we can get a ticket and fly out there before the 100th day? It's just like, I want to be a part of this.
Yeah, you're more than welcome.
Okay, so maybe just on that point, why should we or anybody come out and do a polar dip? Like, you're not actually doing a polar dip, because a dip is like in and out, but you're doing an ice bath. Is this right?
That's right. What is popular even on New Year's Day, and you kind of saw at the beginning of that video clip, is that people just splash in and get out. It's kind of it's an event, but it's just about the experience of, you know, jumping in. But there's something when you spend a little bit more time in the water that gets unlocked inside of you that isn't really tapped into with just the splash. But what I've been finding is that most people are just unsure if they actually have the capacity to do it.
Yeah.
And that's an idea or a belief that people have that isn't really based on experience. It's just something that's scary in front of them, that they're really not sure what their limits are. And for me, it's been about just becoming more aware and understanding better what I have the capacity to do. And that's really been a real learning process.
Yeah, well, we're talking about courage. And for sure, you talked about the psychological, the mental, and of course, physical courage, because you've got to do it. What other ripple effects, where has this given you courage in other areas of your life?
I would say that one of the things that has really changed for me is it's just a confidence. And it's really funny, because throughout this process, there's been situations where, let's say, I've been laying in bed, my alarm goes off, and I don't want to get up, knowing that I have to do, like, I have exercise or whatever I've planned to do. And the thought comes into my mind, it's like, well, if you can jump in the ice water, I'm sure you can get up right now and do this thing. And it's funny to think that that action could actually inspire me in my own life.
Yeah.
It's a wild thought that we could be our own inspiration.
Yeah, that's true.
I just want to say to everyone, Suzie has a list of questions that we're going to get to. But anyone who is online right now with us, if you have questions, please
write them in the chat, and we're going to ask John Mark to answer them, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
John Mark, is your microphone hits every once in a while your zipper, so it just be aware of that. Yeah, thanks. Good.
Now he's toasty warm. I know you're a father of how many kids?
4 kids.
4 kids. You're a husband of amazing Melissa. I call her my little cookie, even though she's not a little cookie so much anymore.
I am.
And you're a business owner, right?
Yeah.
Any other roles you would identify yourself with?
That's a great question. I feel like there are lots of roles. Family is probably one of the biggest. Spending time with my wife and my kids, and even with my immediate family, my siblings, I get enriched by that.
Yeah.
And so even any other ways that I identify myself, by activities that I might do, I like to do them with my family. So I'd say that's pretty high.
What are the ripple effects of you having courage to do these ice baths on any of those roles? You talked about the ripple effect to your alarm clock and getting up in the morning, but how is it hitting your relationships?
In some ways that I didn't really expect. And it's not just the action of stepping out of my comfort zone. It's that being in an ice bath actually changes some things about me. And I've noticed so much stress that's been released. I've noticed that it's almost like my emotions that I am feeling are more pure. And I don't know how to describe it other than that, but it's like when I'm in each moment right now, I don't have the accumulated stress or baggage that I might normally bring into a situation. Or if I do, I'm more aware of it and saying, you know what, I'm actually feeling a little bit bothered about this, and this, and it has nothing to do with what I'm experiencing right now. And so I think part of that awareness comes from like every day having to recognize the voices that are, or the thoughts that are going on about whether they're moving me forward to what I want or kind of pumping the brakes and being a hindrance. And so I feel like it's made me more willing to step out and do things that normally I might have been uncomfortable to do.
Yeah. You're actually, what you're doing is allowing me to step out and do things that I would normally feel uncomfortable to do. We have a question from Benjamin. He says, do you feel the coldness of jumping in when you see these videos?
Absolutely. Especially when I'm putting my head under the water. That's when the coldness really makes its presence known. It's like, I'm here. And I could be sitting in the water, and I do have a specific position that I sit in, and I kind of hold that as still as I can. And I take my hands and I just put them on the tops of my thighs, and that lets some of the heat from my legs kind of keep my hands from freezing. But so my fingers might be aching, my toes might be aching, but as soon as I put my head under that water, all of that is forgotten. It's like it brings a whole new element of the cold, and it's there every time.
Wow. So I am trying to track with you. I think today is day 87. Am I right?
That's a good question. I think today's the 11th of March.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
So I started on the 16th of December.
Okay, somebody figure that out for him.
It is, because my mental exercise is that January had 31 days, February had 29. That ends in a 0 if I add those together.
Okay.
So then I only have to add the last number of the March date with a 6. So 11th plus a 6, that's 87.
Okay, so, and have you dipped yet today?
I haven't yet.
Okay, coming soon.
We're planning to do one this evening, and I had considered doing one while I was doing this interview, but I wasn't sure about my internet signal.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, maybe we'll catch you for another one. Now, tell me a little bit. What got you started? If I understand right, it was something about you were just dipping so you could raise money for kids for Christmas, and it turned into something different.
Yeah, last winter, we had done a couple. Jeremiah and I, my son, we had gone in. He had been asking me for weeks. He was like, let's go in the river. And then finally we went in and tried it. And I was like, well, it would be nice to do this for a purpose. So we had asked for donations for the Christmas hampers at our food bank. And what was strange is the more that I went into the water, the more I wanted to do it. Like there's some weird pull that being in the cold has, that it just keeps calling me back.
That's amazing.
So that's what started it. And then this winter, it was when the ice started to form on the side of the river, and I remembered, and I was like, okay, yeah, we need to go out and try this again. And my plan had been, again, just to dip until the river froze over. But somehow, I guess, the idea of cutting a hole and continuing emerged, and then just the curiosity was like, I wonder if we can do this every day.
Yeah.
So far we have.
That's interesting, because some of the things we've been looking at with courage is fear is contagious, and courage is also contagious. And I've always been thinking it's contagious to others, but what you're saying is it's contagious for you.
To yourself as well.
That's very interesting.
It really is. And one of the things that I have been using as motivation for myself in a more broad area my whole life is just being willing to take the next step. Yeah. And so many times I want to know what the end result is going to be, but it's being willing when an opportunity presents itself to just take that next action. And when I had first set this goal to go every day of winter, it was really difficult to see all the way until the end. But I just had to focus on, okay, I can go today. I'm going to go today. I'm going to go today. And I've had lots of obstacles, whether the river itself didn't cooperate, it's like the cold somehow was fighting against us to do this. And then when I had first started, it was the first week and a half, I got really sick, and I thought, am I really damaging my body? There's so many different aspects that I was considering, but we just kept going every day, and now I'm so grateful that we persevered, but it's still one day at a time.
Yeah. Now, I also noticed that you're trying to lengthen the amount of time that you're staying in the ice bath. Can you tell us about that, where you're at, what is motivating that?
I think when I first did the very first dip in the river, I just went in and I counted my breaths, and my goal was to do 30 breaths. So I got in, and initially it's difficult because your first reaction is like a gasp. So it's like, and it's really hard, especially to get that exhale. It's like your body wants to just keep gasping. So 30 breaths, and it was after I got to the end of 30 breaths, this would have been maybe after a week, I started to realize it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. So I'd be sitting there and be like, wait a second, maybe I could stay in here a little bit longer. And because I was the only one doing it at the time, I didn't really know what my limits were. I didn't know what was okay to do, what was safe to do. And there's not a whole lot of resources to go and find the specifics about, what's beneficial for staying in the water, especially at that temperature. And I think I had worked up to like 4 or 5 minutes, and I had watched a video online where the Dutchman Wim Hof had taken a group and he made them sit for 10 minutes in the water on the first time. And the water wasn't as icy as this, I don't think, but it was almost like as I realized that it was possible to do more, the next day I sat for 10 minutes.
Wow.
And there's something about believing that you can do something that enables you to do it. And up to that point, I didn't know it was possible. And then as soon as I knew it was, then I could do it. And it's funny how I would have this internal struggle about what I could do or what was safe, and then to realize other people are doing it, and then all of a sudden overcome that threshold. So I do kind of understand how powerful the thoughts that we have are about either holding us back or letting us move forward. It's been really enlightening.
Wow. I would love to go off on that complete tangent, but we'll save that for another day. Okay. Tell us about your red line.
Okay. A red line is something that you only get when you stay in the water for a long time, or I'd say somewhere around 4 to 5 minutes. That's when that starts to be present. And I didn't necessarily understand exactly what it is that takes place physiologically when that happens until after I had gotten it. But what actually happens when you go in the cold, and people ask me all the time, are you afraid about getting hypothermia? It actually takes quite a long time for your body, like your core temperature, to drop to get hypothermia. And the reason that it doesn't is because your body has a process where when it's exposed to the cold, it constricts all of the blood vessels on the surface of your skin. And so it holds that blood, it's kind of in a stationary position around the outside of your body. And so your skin and kind of surface can get cold, but it doesn't get mixed with the blood that goes into your core.
Wow.
And so that red line is an indication of that taking place. And so what happens is when you come out and that cold blood that's been kind of held around the surface of your skin starts to go back in through your main circulatory system, it can cool your core even more. And that's why we're really careful to make sure that we only stay in a certain amount of time. The longest that I've gone in is 14 minutes. And I had a pretty severe after drop, it's called, where In the water, it's not too bad. I get out, and as I start to warm up, and then would start to really shiver, and it's that cold blood going into where your vital organs are.
It's incredible.
So we try to keep it like somewhere between 8 and 11, 12 minutes is kind of the sweet spot.
Yeah. Wow. Very interesting. We've got a question. Those of you who are in the chat, keep typing questions in. Benjamin wants to know, how do you overcome the thoughts and pressure of keeping your streak going?
Haha. That's tough. It's actually interesting because now that I'm getting closer to the end, it's not so much the fear of missing a day or that I can't do it. It's like, it's knowing that I am so close to the end, there's this almost feeling of, what happens next.
Yeah.
And this has been such a great experience and opportunity that now what I'm battling with the most is maintaining that enthusiasm, that motivation as it's winding down.
Mm-hmm.
There were days though, and I would go to work, come home, I'd be reading stories to the kids and lay down and just feel like the last thing that I could possibly ever want to do is get back up, leave the house, go out in the cold, do my dip. And it's been every day is a different mental struggle.
Mm-hmm.
But even once I get to the water, I still have that same reluctance. I can put my feet in, I can be stepping down into the water, but I still have, it's like every inch of skin that you submerge in the water, you have another battle. Like, or I can sit with the water level here and still be reluctant to let it come up to here. It's so funny. There's no end to that reluctance.
So is it better for you to jump in, or is it better to just inch by inch? What's actually the best way? Because I'm going to go to my hot tub later and I just want to know how to do this.
The best way for me is to do it all in one motion. Just step in and sit down. And if I pause or hesitate, then it's like another hurdle I have to overcome to get back down into the water.
Very interesting.
I mean, I'm just, as you talk, there are so many parallels that I'm seeing between what you're talking about and what we're discovering. Whenever you step out in courage, there are these, I mean, we can step out in little steps, but those days where it's like, I think I'm going to go, maybe I'm not, it just makes it harder and harder, where it's like, you just got to step in, like David, he just had to toss the stone. And
that's right.
I think that there's a lot of truth for us in that whole reality of just get in there and sit down and see where it takes you.
Yeah.
So I love that. My mind is just going here.
I just want to throw out the message of today. So you can walk in courage. That's the name of this Duzie Live webinar. By the way, we have this every week. Normally it's on Tuesday, but we were flying yesterday, so I'm glad we could work it out today. But you can walk in courage by taking 3 steps. So the first step is see the future of where you want to go, or your future self, who you want to be. The second is be present. Observe your fear, know yourself, and be honest with yourself in that moment. And the third is, how do you get from where you are presently to where you want to be in the future?
How do you occupy the next
How
moment?
do you occupy that next space? And I think it's a step by step. Tell us about it, like your future, your present, and whatever it takes to get from there to there. How is that for you?
Well, I think there's something that is significant about what you said that relates to, I think, a key thing that motivates me. And it has to do with hope. And in order for you to be willing to step out, moving towards a goal or something that you have or can see for the future, there has to be a belief that it's possible. And there's like, because if you don't have that belief that you can even get what you might want, you would never take that step.
No.
And when you have, like, there's some things that Melissa and I have gone through where the future has looked pretty bleak. And when you get just a sliver of illumination about what the future could be, it activates something inside of you. And you choose at that moment to accept that and believe that it's possible or not. But in order to be willing to step out, you have to have hope for something beyond. And I think that's part of what is a driver for me in this courageous act, is that I have hope that by doing these actions, something better is in the future.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about looking, beyond into the future, and it talks about hope deferred makes the heart sick, and faith is the substance of things hoped for. So there's this relationship between hope and faith, like where they need to be there in order to be a catalyst for you to move forward, even if it's just a little slice of hope. Sometimes that's all it takes to move you out of where you are into that next step.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's one thing, as we've been looking at the whole courageous imagination. One of the words that is also used for faith oftentimes is imagination. So without imagination, being able to see it, it's impossible to please God. And we're going to go in that next week. But as you talk, I just see how it isn't courage and imagination or courage and faith. It's one thing. And I've really been interested. Every day when you go out there, you don't just jump in the water. You have to recut the hole. You have to go through the whole process again. How does that play into this whole thing?
I love being outside. I love doing those types of things. So for me, although it is sometimes a monotonous exercise, it's become part of the whole process. And now that, I'm getting close to the end, there's another guy who's come with me. He's going to hit about 50 days, I think, when I hit 100. So he has really taken this and found his own meaning in it and really been an inspiration. And he sometimes helps cut the hole, makes a fire. But it's become like, if you think about some meaningful times that you've had, let's say around a campfire, chatting with friends or making connections, we've been having that every day. So Melissa comes down, the kids come down, we spend, let's say, an hour and a half just chatting around the fire and talking about things that really matter. And so that kind of preparation has its own value. And initially, when I was trying to figure out the best way to do it, it was tough. Sometimes it would take me, an hour and a half just to get the ice cleared out of the hole. Now that it's warming up a little bit, it takes less time, but that action also mentally prepares you for what is coming ahead.
Yeah, I see that.
We've got a question here coming from Tammy, who's in Africa. So she doesn't have ice anywhere. Maybe she has ice. And she said, I heard you talk about the rest of us, if we can't get to your frozen river, taking a cold shower. Talk more about that.
Okay. First off, I will say there is something, like, there's a mysterious aspect to cold exposure that creates real change physiologically, emotionally, that I don't understand. So though I didn't expect to have so much stress release, to have better focus, so much energy. Although you might look and say, oh, that's really difficult to do that every day, I'm experiencing benefits from it that I didn't anticipate. So there is that motivation to keep going. But as far as cold showers go, they activate a similar physiological response in your body, although the temperature isn't nearly as extreme, you get similar benefits from it. And so, like, even though I am doing the ice baths, I still have been doing cold showers, and probably more. I try to start every morning with one. And I used to just kind of try to endure it. Now I pick a song that is about the length that I want to listen or be in the water for. I'll just blast it as loud as I can and try to think about that and get through that way.
Wow.
But I would say, yeah, anybody who's interested in trying it, go in their shower, you have your warm shower or whatever. You can do it a couple of ways. You can incrementally go colder and colder until you kind of reach what you think is your limit. I have one guy who's come for a couple of polar dips who has really taken the cold shower challenge like to heart. He has the hottest shower he possibly can. Like cranks it to as cold as he possibly can, and then just braces himself and waits for that cold to come. So even if you think about when you're in a shower and you just suggest to yourself the idea of turning it cold, and then just listen, what happens, your reaction physically, what goes on in your mind, and the mechanisms that stop you from wanting to do that, they're the same things that kind of put pressure on you to stop stepping out in other areas of your life too. So when you can pick and say this one thing is going to be my exercise, and just use it to learn about yourself, because I'm sure if you just think now, okay, I'm going to go have a cold shower, a really cold shower, what's your reaction? Usually it's reluctance, and as you observe yourself being reluctant, that can really teach you a lot.
Wow, that was going to be my question. If someone's going to go through their ice bath, or their challenge of whatever sort, what wisdom would you give?
First off, if they are going to go out in icy water, right from the very beginning, I've made sure that I never do this without having somebody else there. I don't go somewhere where I'm not sure about how thick the ice is or how deep the water is, if there's much current. Where we are in our river, there's not a lot of current. It's quite close to the shore. And the ice is thick enough we can't even get under it if we tried. But so someone who's trying to do this outside in a really natural setting, I'd say, really be careful about how you approach that. The other thing, if you're going to do cold showers, or maybe it's going outside and shoveling the snow with a t-shirt on, or whatever it is, walk into your mailbox, with one less layer or whatever it is to be patient with yourself. There's so many times that, like, although it's so intense to expose myself to that temperature, and maybe this is still kind of an idea that's formulating. I'm not sure if I can get it across correctly, but I have a tendency to want to hammer my body into submission, to do whatever I need to make sure that it acts the way that I want. But there's also an approach that we can have for ourselves that's less harsh, it's less judgmental, and it's more compassionate. And I feel like as we're going through situations where we need to step out with courage and bravery, to make sure that we have allowance for where we currently are, and an awareness of where that is, and to celebrate, even if it's an incremental advance, to acknowledge it and be grateful for it, and not to be too difficult on ourselves. So the way that would relate to a cold shower is maybe you say, okay, I think I can handle 15 seconds. And you go to a temperature that's colder than you normally would, and you stand there for 15 seconds. And it's not about saying, oh, well, I have to hit 2 minutes, I have to hit 5 minutes, and it's got to be the absolute coldest. I think it's about acknowledging where you are, and being aware that if you are consistent, you'll get where you're trying to go.
Yeah, one of the questions I have, John Mark, is tomorrow morning when Susie tries this cold shower, how do I get her to stop screaming? Because around the world they will hear her.
I'm not a fan of cold, and I think that's why I'm like following you so intently. Like, yes, John Mark, do it.
Yeah, there's two aspects to our reaction to the cold. One is our psychological, like how we perceive it, and then also how our physical body actually reacts to it. And mentally it's uncomfortable for us, but physiologically our bodies have systems in place to protect us when we're in the cold. It's just that we don't very often allow ourselves to get uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
a
nugget
whole
right
nother
there.
topic right there.
Yeah, it
you're
is.
going to come on more
True.
often. That's
Yeah,
great.
when I was thinking about courage, there's a couple verses that stand out. Joshua 1:9, of course. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. I know that one. I love that one. But this one stood out to me.
This one blows me away.
This is set. Think about courage when you hear this passage from 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 11 to 13. And it's taken from the Message. So it's a little bit more relaxed. It says, Dear Corinthians, I can't tell you how much I long for you to enter this wide open, spacious life. Courage. We didn't fence you in. The smallness you feel comes from within you. Your lives aren't small, but you're living them in a small way. I'm speaking as plainly as I can and with great affection. Open up your lives, live openly and expansively.
Beautiful.
How does that hit you?
I like it. The first thing that kind of came to my mind when you're reading that is in Hebrews, where it talks about entering a place of rest. And there's a way that we can move forward where we struggle and we're toiling and like it's a battle every day. There's also a way to move forward where we're doing it from a place of rest. And I feel like when he's talking about, be courageous, don't be afraid. There's a way to face things that I guess acknowledges that they're difficult, and maybe that there is uncertainty. There's a way to walk through that without taking extra worry, extra anxiety. Melissa wants to say some things too, so I'll give her a chance here in a second.
I love that.
So, and it's kind of like what I just said. There's two ways to approach cold exposure. One is just letting your body experience it, letting it behave the way that it needs to, and then the other is our reaction to our body being exposed to the cold. And it's like that with everything that we face. When you walk through situations that are uncomfortable, it's rarely the situation itself that's uncomfortable. It's our reaction to it. It's our belief about it. And it's those things that are operating on a level that we're not usually aware of that hold us back. And when we can come into a place of that rest, I feel like it allows us to move with so much greater confidence, and stepping out in courage.
Yeah. That's interesting because there's a comment coming in here from Dale, and he says, I'm terrified of the ice cold water. I had an experience canoeing very early spring. The canoe capsized and my physical body went into shock. And I think there's a way, sometimes that's the reaction. It is. Yeah.
It is. And so physically, your body does go into shock when you expose it to the cold. But it doesn't last. So you can, and we've had, like I said, we had 60 people come. There's only been 2 people who have come in who could not get past that shock. One spent the whole time in that gasp, like he was in there for a minute and just could not overcome that reaction. I had another guy step in, got to his waist, and just couldn't go any further. and he was stuck. And that's not to say that, that's bad or whatever. It's everyone reacts differently, but
It's reality.
that's right. But your body physiologically has a shock response to the cold.
Yep.
But it's like by me staying in there longer, it's like saying, I acknowledge that this is what's happening, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it only lasts, let's say, 15 to 30 seconds and less now for me. But it's part of the activation of the system that goes into play to make you be able to endure it. And most of the time when people are in surprise cold exposure, like the canoe tips over, they fall through the ice, the recommendation is to wait about a minute before you try to do anything. So you fall through the ice, just wait. Don't frantically panic, scramble, because that's when people will gasp and pull in water. But there's something that actually happens in your body that's so amazing to experience, because you go in and there's this tension, and then you can just feel it all go.
Wow.
And although it's maybe not connected to the courageous message, what I didn't realize when I first went into the cold was that the areas that would get really tense when I go in the water, so your first reaction is to get really tight. Let's say the cold shower blasts on you and you tense up. The same areas that would tense up when I go in the cold are the same areas in my body where I would hold tension, where I would hold stress in the day. And what I noticed was the longer that I did cold exposure, there was, I don't know if it's the way that you shiver in that spot or the tension, and then just the complete release as your body relaxes. I've had areas where I had pain from in the muscles from holding tension that has released and gone and hasn't come back.
Wow.
So it's really amazing.
We were studying last week this lady who is a fear courage coach, and she was saying you almost have to give the fear a name and then address the fear and say, I know you're here, you're trying to protect me, but I'm going to drive, you get in the back seat. And it's been
interesting. You don't even get snacks.
Right. And this week, there's been a few times of fear that I actually had to say, hey, Jack, my fear is called Jack. I said, get in the back seat. So I acknowledge it, but then I choose to walk in courage. And I hear that coming out a lot.
Yeah. It really is, because your fear reaction is like a little kid, like throwing a tantrum, trying to get your attention, like, hey, look at me over here. But it's like we've been through some exercise where it's like, who's driving the bus?
Yeah. Well, we need to get Melissa in here for a few minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I will say one thing. Melissa was had been coming out, taking pictures, helping me with my social media. And she was going through what about this and what about this? And I just said to her, if you want to write about this, you need to do it. And you know what? She did.
Yeah, and she's done it a number of times now.
Yeah, she has done a lot. So
I'll ask her about that. John Mark, it's been amazing. If we can, we'd love to have you come back and pick your brain.
Once you get all through it,
300 more moments about it. One thing I just want to say quickly, Dan and I did the 100 Days to Live when we first came off the ship. We went on a road trip in our Zoe car. We did 100 Days to Live. It was funny. I was thinking about it just before we came on. We had 100 days. You have 100 days. And for me, when I got to 100, by the time you're at 87, you're like 13 more. Easy peasy, right? I could do it, even though there are challenges. And then when I got to that 101 day, it was such a crazy letdown. I wasn't on the 100-day journey anymore. So we had such, we missed it so much. And we just started the 90-day countdown to what we're doing now because I want to just chat with you on coming near that day 100 and see what it's doing to you, because we definitely had some personal challenges, you keep the momentum and the streak going. And so I hope you have an amazing plan for day 101 as well. That includes some sort of celebration.
Yeah, that's what I want to know. How are you going to celebrate? But we will talk to you later about that.
Yeah, awesome. I would love to talk with you more about this.
Yeah.
I think we could talk for hours, but
Yeah, let's do it.
Because we're actually finding part of courage is also celebration.
Yeah.
Once you go through courage, you have to stop and celebrate it. But that again, that's another.
You're almost to that future you, that 100 days, all the days of winter, and then how do you celebrate and how do you take what you've learned from that into the next space?
Yeah, that's something that I'm anticipating, but also trying to, like, I know, or I have an idea of what that's going to feel like, and I have some other things that I'm trying to implement now, so that when that comes, this just becomes another piece to what I really want.
Do you have any fear of stopping?
I kind of do. There's like, I think it's I wouldn't say it's a fear of stopping, but it's maybe a little bit of worry, anxiety about what it's going to feel like to stop. And it's one of those things that most of the time worry is based on what we think might happen, right?
Yeah.
And I've been really trying to make sure that although I have future goals, to keep focused on today, right now.
Yeah.
Super.
You're still right here.
Thank you.
Yeah, God bless you, and happy day 87 out there in the dip. We'll be watching you on the socials. Thank you so much for documenting. Thanks for all your nuggets too. We'll be in touch.
Sounds good.
Hi there.
Hi, Melissa.
Do you guys have time to talk to me?
Definitely. Some of the people here might have to go. If you have to go at any time, just send a message that you have to go, but we're happy to stay on as long as we want. This here is Melissa, and she's John Mark's wife, and she's my little cookie. She was in our wedding.
Girl at our wedding.
Yeah, she was in our wedding. So she's my niece of my oldest brother, oldest of my oldest brother. Melissa, welcome on Duzie Live.
Thank you guys so much for having John Mark and for having me here. It's such a pleasure.
Yeah, speak to us. What's on your heart?
So I'm one of the people that was watching John Mark from the sidelines, and it was really interesting how he kind of like pulled me into the cold plunge as well. So he started by saying, "Hey, I need somebody to come out and take pictures and videos. Do you know anybody?" I was like, "Okay, I'll come." So then I started by taking some photos and videos, and then I was like, "Oh, this is like a thing. This is actually a thing that you're doing and is important." And I was just watching him, and to hold, hopefully my hair is okay with this.
You look great.
To hold the phone, especially in the -20-degree weather, both Bethany, Jamark's sister, and me, to hold the phone is so hard on your hands. And so Jamark is, undressing, getting in his bathing suit, getting in the water. And I'm thinking, how is he even doing this? Because my fingers are just, freezing. And so John Mark would dip. And there was this one day where he got in his truck and I got in my car to go home. And my hands I just had all this fear. Like, are my fingers going to fall off? I think this is what it feels like when you get hypothermia or you have frostbite. I've had frostbite before, and all the fear just came over me. And Jamark actually had to call me because my car was locked and he couldn't get in. And I was just like this. And he called me and I answered, and he was like, "You have to move your fingers. Babe, you got to move your fingers. You got this. You're okay. You can do this." Wow. And it was like a real mental struggle. And then I was like, "You're right. My fingers aren't going to fall off. You're right. I'm okay. I'm in a car. There's heat here. Like, this is okay." But I had always been afraid of the winter, and I've always been afraid of being in a cold place. And I think it's funny that I live in a very cold place. Mm-hmm. And when it's cold here, I just shut myself inside, and try to meet people inside and go from my hot, warm house to my warm car, and then vice versa. And so actually being able to experience it. And so when Jamark was like, "Just move your fingers," I realized that there's a lot of things in my life where I get really afraid of, where I have those thoughts where I'm just like, this is it, this is the end, or this is going to be really scary. So there was this one time where I decided to get in the water, and I want to just go back to one of the things that Jamark had said about the Hebrews thing, where he was talking about calming down and finding that, what was it that you said? Yeah,
Rest.
that rest. Yes. So when you get in the water, like John Mark said, you can just like hyperventilate and get really, and the moment that you can just find your rest, we call it find your peace, like just find that spot. And that is the moment that you stop hyperventilating and you're like, I'm okay here. I am actually not going to die in this situation. I'm okay. And like John Mark said, it takes people, you know, depending on where they're at. And so usually I'm at the whole trying to say, tell me what you're thinking. What's going on in your head? Like, walk me through what you're thinking. How are your toes? Where are you sitting? Where are you standing? And then they're like, oh, right. Okay. I'm okay now. I can breathe. I can be here. And so one of the things, the most valuable thing for me that I noticed is when I was in the hole and in the water and I was hyperventilating, getting stressed out, getting worked up. And if I could just like close my eyes and breathe and find that rest, enter into that rest, then I was okay. And I started noticing in my day that I would do stuff like the kids, mom. And then it would just, you know, work me up. Whatever it is, there's things in our lives that work us up. And if we can pay attention to that, like John Mark said, and then just enter into that rest, there you go.
Melissa, I have a question for you because you faced one of your fears as well by being in a musical. Yeah? I mean, this is something you would not normally do. And then I'm seeing these pictures where you're starring in a musical. How did
you have courage?
How did that happen for you?
Well, I had, you know, Jamark was talking about belief. I had somebody believe in me. My kids were like, Mom, you could do this. And I was just like, I don't think I can. And they're like, yes, we think you can. And so then all of a sudden that belief started getting inside of me. And I was like, well, maybe I can. And I tried out for this. I just decided, you know, to take a step. So Jamark actually has a really great message that he kind of got into a little bit that I'm hoping he writes a book about. And the idea is taking one step into the right direction. So you only need, you know, you were talking about your 3 things for courage. And one of them is that small steps, right? And so my first small step was going to the audition. I didn't have to say yes. I didn't have to like think the whole thing through. How am I going to do my makeup? How, you know, the audience staring at me. I didn't have to do that. I just had to show up to the audition. I had to say yes. And then once I was at the audition, I was just like, I don't even know if I'm going to get a call back. And then I got a call back. And then I was like, okay, let me just hear what the director has to say to me. So I think it's those small, you don't have to, like Jamark said, you don't have to worry about the end result. You don't have to worry about everything. Just say yes and take those small steps and see what's around the corner.
Yeah.
This is a quote I've been saying lately is courage is not one big step, but 1,000 small steps.
Oh, so good.
Yeah. And I think you also spoke to one of the tips about courage that's going in our course in a few days. Have courage, you know, and do everything to have courage, but also have courage for others. And you just spoke about the power of people having belief and courage for you that gave you enough hope and belief, like you and John Mark are talking about, to do that. So
I also invite anyone that's still with us in the chat, any questions you have for Melissa, bring it on.
I just wanted to share just a few things. I want to hear your thought because I know I love following both of your socials. Melissa has really an encouraging presence and she's a business owner as well. And she's moving and shaking in so many areas. So she has to be courageous. So follow her and follow John Mark. We'll send out some links. But building a courageous mindset, they say, number 1, embrace your fear. So do it even though you're afraid. We've been hearing that. The second one, which hit me by surprise and I love, do not hesitate. Because the longer your brain has to come up with excuses, the more time you'll have to panic about hypothetical or even real negative outcomes. And John Mark spoke to that. Third is learn to be mindful, fully present in the current moment. We've been hearing all about that. 4, get outside of your comfort zone. And it might be a cold shower or just tackling that thing that you've said no to. And you just reminded us, say yes and go for it. And then the fifth and final area is build confidence. It allows you to trust in your abilities and yourself. You're more than your fears. And John Mark said that's one of the things that his outcome so far on day 87 is confidence in so many areas of his life. Any thoughts from you, Melissa?
Yeah, well, there's lots, but I'll say one that just came up because it was the last one about confidence. So I had to take my boys by myself to the big city to go see the doctor's appointments. And I try usually not to do that by myself. I usually go with John Mark or somebody else. And so I was in
5 hours away, right?
5 hours away. That's right. Good knowing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just, very unsure of myself, very unsure of the directions of where to go, of, having the boys to be at all their appointments. And I was starting to work myself up, we were talking about that before. And Jamar called and he just said, why are you feeling like this? You are somebody who has lots of confidence. You can do this. He said, I don't know if there's any other women in Edmonton who have done an ice bath like you have. I was just like, you're right. I can do this.
I can do hard things.
I can do hard things. If I could do that, I can definitely do
good.
this.
Yeah.
And so you don't have to get into an ice bath. Maybe that's not your hard thing. But whatever your hard thing is, do it so that it helps you when you're in those moments. You can be like, I can do this. I can do the hard things. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So Amy was with us. She said, great to be with you. I've got to go. Thank you for the amazing encouragement to face challenges.
Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're all like motivated up. Yeah. Can you speak to us a little bit, Melissa, about being the support team? So people who are doing hard things, I mean, it might be like some people have a disease or a cancer or surgical procedures.
Or even what you've gone through with your boys.
Yeah.
You're many times the support person.
Yeah. So, or somebody's hard thing could be a mental hurdle to get over.
For a lot of time. I think the biggest thing about being on the sidelines is just being there with somebody. Putting yourself in the shoes. Like today, I actually didn't do this, so you can learn from my example. But John Mark was outside fixing his, what were you doing on your truck?
Changing the shocks.
He was changing the shocks on his truck. And one of the things that I was thinking about is, I could just go out there and be with him and see what he needs. And when you insert yourself into the situation, all of a sudden you see it from their perspective and you're able to talk to them, and being in close proximity to that person allows you to start seeing it from their perspective. You all of a sudden have this compassion that you might not have had before. Like before, as a wife with John Mark, and he's saying, I'm going to jump in the water 100 days. I'm thinking, he's crazy. Is he going to die? Where's our income going to come from? Are my kids going to watch him and say their dad died in the river? Like, you have all these things going through their head. And I thought, instead of just judging, why don't I go down to the river and just see what it's about? Just put myself in his shoes and have those conversations and listen and be there. And I don't know, Suzie, I watched you at a ball where I think you guys were helping special needs children.
Yeah, that's right.
And you were just with them and loving them and having a great time with them.
It was one of the best nights of my life. It actually was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, but you were in close proximity to them.
Yes.
So all of a sudden you started to see what they needed, what they were thinking, what they were going through. And then you have 1,000 ideas of how you can help.
Yeah.
Wow. I hear you saying physical close proximity. That's awesome when possible. But there's other ways to support even from afar, isn't there?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Checking out, making sure that person's okay. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So we're going to commit at some point to come visit you and take a jump in the Peace River, maybe sometime around July.
We got a date even.
Not so much
We've
ice.
been trying to get up there to see you, but you're a long ways away. We're going to try to do it. Yeah. Any other nuggets you want to share with us about courage, or a piggyback on anything that's been said?
Yeah, I feel like everything that you guys are saying. What are those 3 points that you had made again?
So you can walk in courage by taking 3 steps. The first is to look at the future, where you want to go. And in our courses, we've been talking about our future self. try to have vision, belief, hope, imagination for who we want to be in that space.
The second step,
or what you want to do.
Second step is you need to look at your present. You need to observe your fear. Some fears are good.
Yeah.
And some are not. So you need to really look at what is the fear.
Be real with the authentic experience you're having right now.
Yeah. And the third one is really occupy the next moment, which is how do I move forward? What are the little steps to get me a little bit closer?
Yeah.
Yes. So when Jamark was talking and I was like, tap out, come on, let me in. One of the things that I was thinking about is that moment when I was getting in the water and I was like, I don't even know if I can do this. So when I was first starting, my brother Jonathan called me and just said, walk me through your process. Like, what are your fears? What are your thinking? Like, what are you thinking about and everything? And I said, well, one of the things I noticed was those small steps. I was just like, I can't think about actually getting in the water because I'm too afraid of that, even when I'm down at the hole. But I can think, sit down, take off your shoes, take off your socks, slip on your sandals. Sometimes I wear them, sometimes I don't. Okay, now I'm going to take steps towards the hole.
So good.
I'm going to put my hands on the side. And it's just those small things that really help me actually get into the water to that, overcoming that big fear. And my brother Jonathan said, that's great for the first 3 or 4 times that you're doing that. He said, but then after that, you're going to need something more to get you back to that hole. Right. And you're going to need that big future vision, what you guys are talking about. You're going to need to know your why. You're going to need to know why would you come back down to the hole? And so I feel like what you guys are talking about, those little steps and that big thing, they go hand in hand, because if you don't have them, because I can think all I want about, okay, taking my boots off and taking my socks off. But if I'm not down at that hole, the reason that brought me down there in the first place, I'm not actually going to be motivated to get in the hole, right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
That's good. So good.
Wow. So awesome. Thank you for joining us. And like I said,
give you guys the Courage Award.
Yeah.
Woohoo! I'll put it on a courage hat here.
Can you hear me when I speak?
Yeah, I can. You want to say something? Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing that I thought was really neat.
I'm going to take a selfie of us. Okay, smile. Got it. Thank you.
It's about the capacity to have belief for somebody when they don't believe in themselves.
Yeah.
And I have never felt more unconditional support than I have while I've been doing this. And it's come from unexpected people and at unexpected times. But a lot of times in interactions that we have with people, we want something back from that. We want something from them. And part of being a real support and believing in somebody else is making it about their experience, about them. And I don't know, there's times where I felt, appreciation and love from significant people, but to have people join the advancement of this without any kind of payback for them, and to have belief and hope in me and Melissa for as we go through this process, it's such an amazing position to be in, that it's made me want to be able to do that for other people. And so part of that courage, or being courage for other people, I think it's really it's what people who are strong need to do.
Yeah,
it's so good.
Reaching your hand down and helping people up. And I think that's it's not just courage for us. Sometimes it's about being there and being courageous for other people too.
Yeah.
Tammy said, take one earbud and put it in his ear.
I can hear you guys.
I think that's such a strong piece of it, being courageous for other people. And like we're saying, being courageous is very contagious.
Yeah.
But also those who are nearby us who are in fear, we said that earlier, that's also contagious. So if we can be more courageous than fearful, and to face those fears and the future and the present and all those steps and the parts of the courage that we need to walk in.
A few weeks ago, we were talking about being an eagle for another person. I think that's exactly what you're talking about, that it's not about you anymore, but it's about coming over them and helping them to feed, to focus, and to fly. It's a gift we can give to people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really beautiful.
Yeah, I never realized that when I wear this hat, I actually match Susie. Look,
I know we look good together.
Oh, we want to take a picture of that. Hold on, go back. Love it.
That's awesome.
Nice.
We got to do some photo shoots of that. Yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. Wow. Again, we're going to have you back on coming soon, our Duzie podcasts. And we would love to carry on. This is our whole year theme is courageous imagination and the ability to truly have courage and to have that faith, hopeful vision like you're
as we
telling us
live
about
fully and love fully.
Yep. Yeah. So living fully alive, relentlessly pursuing who God made us to be and those things we're going for, and then loving people so fully. And I think we're talking about that. Having courage for ourselves and courage for others. And we want to pick brains, your beautiful brains again, very near in the soon.
So if you're gonna write a book, we'll help you out there.
Yeah.
Let's work together.
Yeah, we've done that before. Yeah. So a couple
good.
of things.
I've been working on it.
Good.
Cool. Dale says, so true. One small mindful step helps us move on. How to go back again involves confronting our fears. And Tammy says, love this chat. Thanks so much for sharing. Nikki says, great chat. So inspiring. Thank you, guys.
So I think I'm going to end by saying thank you to all. And I'm going to play the whole 8-minute video for anyone to watch that didn't watch it. And
that will be our grand finale.
We'll connect with you. Did you put the how to connect with them?
I'm just going to write their names in case you want to know.
Instagram.
And Melissa, are you Melissa Earle?
Melissa E. Earle. Melissa E. Earle.
Yeah, she calls herself Me, M-E-E for her initials. I love that.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed this.
Yeah, and you guys are both on Facebook and you're on Instagram, so they can find you there, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. God bless you. We'll be chatting soon. Thank you.
Thank you all for
moments together.
Thank you all for coming on. It's been a great chat together.
Duzie Live. Walk in courage, everybody. Go for it for yourself and for others. We are loving life.
And seeing good days.
Bless you guys.
Bye.
It was a daunting and teeth-chattering experience for those who took part in Edmonton's annual polar plunge on Sunday in support of the Special Olympics.
Shock of hitting the water never changes. It's that instantaneous, like, it's cold, and you almost takes your breath away.
Now this one-day challenge inspired an Alberta man to go one step further. John Mark Earle has decided to plunge every day of winter. He started on December 16th and will go until March 19th in his hometown of Peace River, which is 5 hours north of Edmonton.
Wind chill of minus 47. That was the coldest day I went in. And psychologically, that's pretty tough to face.
His reason for doing the daily dip is to create awareness about mental health.
I think all of us face lots of stressors. And sometimes it feels like the stress that I'm feeling alone.
Even though it's always a shock to his system when he jumps in, John Mark says he appreciates how this pushes him out of his comfort zone.
It has more to do with a tendency to hide from the things that are uncomfortable, the things that might be scary. And I realize that when I am living my life from a position of fear, it's not my best life.
So far, John Mark has plunged for 42 days, so he still has a ways to go, but he's more than up for the challenge. From Edmonton, Charolta Saskew, City News.
Under the ice. Holy.
Oh, baby, it's too shallow right here. I think I'm good with that for today. bad.
222.
Woo! When I went in yesterday, this is where I cut my notch and went swimming out from. So it's frozen another 40 feet. So this stuff here isn't thick enough for me to actually walk on.
This is something else. Day 22. Woo!
It is freezing cold. You can tell by the sound of the snow. So this is just a light dusting of snow on the ground. But you can hear the squish it makes.
Think I can. Oh yeah. It's kind of weird.
She's running.
Yeah, I grabbed some milk and all the go. Oh yeah, that's awesome. How far do you have to go to get that?
Your socks are
Just
smoking.
past Roma Drive.
Oh yeah.
Next turn right.
Oh yeah.
Woo! Second row.
It's like a layer of ice on it.
It's hard to use. There we go.
I can't even believe it.
I can't even believe it.
Good thing we weren't here when it happened.
If we were out there, we'd be dead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you, Mark, maybe that's why we went to the Heart River.
These are my shorts. That's how cold it is.
You should throw them to Bethany.
Like a frisbee. Yes.
True funny.
Holy.
Don't break them. They might break.
Oh, yeah, just snap in my hat.
Hey, Alicia. You got this, man.
Yeah.
Hey, love.
Hey, babe.
I'm producer for the Ryan Jesperson Show on 6:30 Chet in Edmonton. I'm calling, wondering if you have time tomorrow morning about 11:50 to come on the show with Ryan to talk about your daily ice bath. Somebody sent us
Finally starting to
your
warm up.
Facebook page showing your pictures of your ice bath. So yeah, just wanted to talk about reasoning behind it, if you got hypothermia from it, all that good stuff. It is
The Ryan Jesperson Show, weekday mornings at 9 on 6:30 Chet. I just spent the last few minutes cruising John Mark Earle's Facebook profile. It is wild. This guy is taking daily dips in the Peace River. I'm looking at this one photo here. The guy is just locked in. eyes closed, hands in a position of prayer or meditation with a minus 47-degree wind chill reality. Unbelievable. The owner-operator of Peace River Homes, kind enough to join us this morning over the phone. A good morning to you.
Good morning.
I've never met you, and I will already put you in legend category. How did this thing get started? These photos, John, are amazing.
Hey, these ballots are complimentary from our local auto parts supply store, Pat's Auto Supply.
He was in the south end. So this ice here is the stuff that's on the bottom.
Ah, did it float up?
Yeah.